Okay.
All right, I see that there are people joining in. It looks like we've got a good group of participants. So welcome everybody to Alpine's webinar series. This is our January edition, and today's topic is deciding to stay or move, evaluating facility options. And we'll be focusing on key decision factors in planning for the future. So I'm going to be your moderator today. My name is Jim Chamberlain. I'm Senior Managing Director at Alpine. My background, 30 plus years in supply chain, warehousing, industrial engineering background by training. So I've done a lot of work on facility design, layouts, and there's a lot to learn uh, about it as you go through your career. And speaking of that, I'm going to introduce Austin Miller, who is a lot younger and better looking than I am. And his role at Alpine is he leads the design and layout group within Alpine. He's done between 16 and 20 designs in his career already, anywhere from 30,000 square feet up to 500,000 square feet. And the key part about what Austin's going to be talking about is that we work to understand, does the client even need to move to a new facility, or are there things we can do to keep you within the four walls? So key components there that really do tie into the dollars that are in play when it comes to decisions around executing a stay or go and designing the appropriate layout. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Austin and let him take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. Yeah, so a brief introduction for this webinar. We're looking over the key metrics on deciding whether we need to move to a new facility or whether we can stay in our current. So a lot of those really key factors that we want to look at are growth factor, what kind of storage capacity we need, the number of pick facings and how we access them, and then the staging and shipping requirements needed to run our business. So a little agenda to go over. We're just going to look at the things to consider before making a decision about the facility. Looking at the future options we have, whether we can stay in our current facility or make a move. And then when you do make a move, it's you can either go into a greenfield. So when I say greenfield, I mean brand new build. You're in charge of the design from start to finish, or moving into a brownfield, which would be not your current facility, but a new facility to you that already exists. So you have a little less to say with a lot of the physical attributes to it. And then we're also going to talk about the decision process. So some things to consider is definitely what our growth looks like from a business standpoint. So looking 3, 5, and 10 years out, and what our SKUs are doing versus what our volume is doing. Whether they're both growing or only one of these categories is growing can really change what your facility needs to look like. We also like considering performing an in-depth analysis of our data. We do this through a storage type analysis or STA. And what that does is gives us the ability to perform a high level space estimate and a budgetary analysis to really get a full grasp on the scale of our building and some rough costs to see what options we do have.
One thing too, just to jump in, if you do have questions, please do use the QA or the chat at the bottom of the screen, and feel free to ask as we go through the presentation, and we'll answer them as we go. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so future planning. So what does it look like and how do we see right into the future from where we're at? So we like to look at an in-depth analysis of our SKU data. So that's going to be SKU growth. Are we gaining more SKUs each year? Are we just taking on more volume as we're going? And then we also really need to look at the dimensional data of these SKUs. So what are our sizes? What do our cases look like? What do our pallet sizes look like? and this gets a good grasp on the type of racking we're going to need and how much of that racking to sustain business going into the future. Also looking at inbound goods and outbound goods. So what does the dock space need to be? That is an often overlooked feature of some warehouses. And making sure that we have enough space that are designed out for the 5 and 10 year mark, so we don't get all of our congestion at the most important part of our process. So I just want to go over some rack types real quick, just to make sure. I'm going to talk about them throughout the presentation, just to make sure we're all familiar. Um, so there are many different rack types. I've included a handful here just to go over them and make everybody aware. We have pushback, which is dense pallet storage. Doesn't follow FIFO very well, but again, just densifies pallets. Really good for some customers. There's also case flow, which is very nice for picking cases. Um, and then just standard single select. Oh, on the next one here, apologies, some of the names are wrong. We have cantilever racking, which fits long and odd shaped items. Um, Double deep selective rack, which is a little more dense than selective, but still gives you some flexibility. And then, of course, drive in, which would be the densest solution. So, with all these different rack types, I just want to clarify that it's never a one size fits all. Throughout all of my projects, I don't think I've ever had the same mix of rack types in a facility. So, being able to utilize each of these based on your data of your product is very important for facility design. And then, even more important for when you're planning for the future, knowing which rack types you'll need before even moving is a huge win, because you can see costs from it. You also get to see what your capacity can look like, and this is where we'll get into whether or not we can stay in our current facility.
And one thing just to add to what Austin was saying is that we've all been in facilities where you walk in and it's all single select racking and a lot of aisle space. What we do when we do our storage type analysis is we really do that deep dive, and we basically identify the ideal size and quantity of the forward pick and reserve storage for every single SKU. And then that way you can have a portion that need to go into single select rack, a portion of your business that works well in drive-in rack, pushback, all the way down to small bins. And what we've seen is by doing this type of analysis, redoing layouts, we could increase capacity by up to 85% in some instances, where the client was initially asking us to expand their building or help them to search for a new facility. We were able to come in and say, you know what, you really don't need to move at this particular point. And the data will actually show that you can stay in your building for X more years based on those growth projections that Austin mentioned.
Yeah, exactly right, Jim. So being able to stay in your facility is a great option, right? We don't have to worry about the move and the costs of that. So I'm going to go over some of the points we like to assess when staying in a facility. So really just designing that layout to maximize your current space. You'd be surprised, a lot more often than not, we see clients able to stay in their existing. So the first point I want to bring up is clear height. So being able to make sure we can maximize our utilization of the clear height is just a huge factor in staying in a facility. Although a lot of the times it does mean we may need some new material handling equipment in order to reach that max height. The opportunity cost of staying in that facility versus purchasing one or two new machines to handle a higher lift height is greatly beneficial. Next up is column spacing. So being able to use different rack types to optimize the different rack layouts we can do in order to bury those columns within the flue space. Really helps make a facility more efficient, where you're not going to have columns in the aisles, as well as we could be gaining more positions back because there won't be any columns inside of racking either.
And with that one, we've seen doing analysis on facilities that you can lose anywhere between 5 and 10% of your capacity if you have building columns that are located within your storage medium. So being able to do that analysis on either a new facility or a spec building to get your column spacing correct can actually increase your revenue generating space within the building.
Next up is aisle widths. So this is a big one from what I've seen in a lot of facilities. Being able to get material handling equipment that can operate in a smaller aisle. So taking your 12 or 13-foot aisles of just single select and moving those down to 10 or 11 feet helps us just gain even more racking within the entire facility. Again, here we see another 5 to 10% depends on the size of the building and the way we can lay it out, a gain in capacity. Depth of the rack type. So talking about all the different rack types, we can leverage that storage type analysis to determine which SKUs can go in denser racking in order to solidify all those and gain more capacity out of our square footage. As well as evaluating some automation options. So reducing the size of the forward pick area in order to gain capacity in the whole building, whether that's through having even more pick facings, or being able to have a higher capacity of reserves or replenishments. So sticking with that evaluation, some of the things we like to talk about when going into a new facility or seeing if we can stay is new material handling equipment. So again, being able to reach that minimum aisle width while still being able to be safe in these aisles is very important, as well as having a higher max lift height. It's pretty standard now to see 23 feet max lift height. And I don't see that sometimes in these facilities when we're going to make some new designs. So making sure we're maximizing our clear height with new material handling equipment is an easy one for staying in your facility.
And with the material handling equipment, as with life, there are always trade-offs. So a stand-up counterbalance lift can go to that 23-foot high or 276 inches. If you get a reach truck, you could go up to 321 typically, but the trade-off in that is the capacity versus productivity, because a stand-up reach truck can't go in and out of trailers, so there is a handoff that has to take place. So those are the things that you need to be able to analyze in order to make the right decision when it comes to capacity and productivity, and a lot of that depends on the number of forklift operators that you have in your building and the amount of product you're trying to move.
Yep, absolutely. And then staging requirements is another, kind of key thing that we like to look at is trying to have that 60 feet from dock door to where the first column lies, to really give us that ideal number of, lanes per depth in order to, hit our quota for loading and unloading, as well as having enough room on the dock for a packing and processing stations. If your business does require that, having them on the dock and enough room there in order to operate is very beneficial for staying in your facility. And then
And I was just wanted to add on to that too, Austin, about the staging is we really like to just like the storage type analysis, we want the analytics to drive the design of staging. How many staging lanes do you need per door based on pallets per inbound, the depth of those staging lanes, looking at not only average but peak requirements to really make sure that doesn't become a bottleneck, because typically the staging area is kind of the last area that gets paid attention to, but it is the first area that can cause heartburn within an operation.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last thing we like to evaluate is rack types. So whether or not we can, provide dense storage options based on your data, and even down to your slower movers, putting those into denser racks, such as bins shelving. We like to see sometimes we'll do some bins shelving under single select rack. That way we can still utilize the full pallet positions above, while tucking those slower movers underneath densely together in order to save space and hit capacity requirements. Um, as well as pick modules like I brought up with the automation evaluation, being able to stack your forward pick locations on top of each other and keep them in a smaller footprint has been very beneficial for some clients, based on the way they do their business and how much they're picking. So here I just want to show an example of how we were able to keep a customer in their current facility after the design. They thought they had to move. We were able to come in. We did the analysis with a high level space estimate, and we said, hey, if we do it like this with these rack types based on your data, we can fit in your same footprint. So being able to and I guess I'll just talk about the drawing here real quick. So I do have some arrows pointing to each of the rack types just to get everybody familiar. We have some case flow, so densifying some of their smaller pick items. We have pushback, densifying some of their full pallet items. And then single select, that was in order to have flexible options with some of their SKUs, as well as cantilever, as they had some extra long items that didn't qualify very well for a single select or a pushback. We're able to use this cantilever in order to get really flexible with the width of these items. So a lot of big wins in this facility, being able to utilize more of their clear height through purchasing new material handling equipment, as well as reducing their aisle width overall, going to a stand-up counterbalance in order to reach that 10-foot aisle, and to get more racks, more runs of racking.
And in this particular case, um, they'd been in this building for 12 years. They had a pretty favorable rent rate. And the thought of having to move to another facility with rent rates being what they are these days was really not attractive to them. And so the investments in the racking to keep them in this building were completely a win for them versus having to go through a move plan. And typically you're going to go to a higher rent rate facility. So they were very pleased to be able to find a lot of what we'll call hidden space within their existing facility.
So we've been talking a lot about material handling equipment. So I'm just going to show a brief overview of the options that we've been talking about. So some different machines. We have a stand-up counterbalance on the top. Um, so this is kind of that flexible option, which can get us to a pretty high clear height of that 23 feet. But a lot of these newer buildings are having higher clears. I've seen a lot lately where we're looking at 32-foot clear. Sometimes more than that. So we can go to a reach truck option, which, like Jim was saying earlier, less flexible, um, but it gives you that extra capacity boost. They can easily outweigh the cost, right? If we're considering this, being able to buy or lease a reach truck just to gain extra capacity, we can see about a 10K difference between the two types of equipment. But going to that reach truck gives us an additional 2 to 4 pallets per bay, um, which could get you up to 15% more capacity, for just a $10,000 difference. So really a lot of the times we see these paying the difference in at least a year. So more often than not, these are a good option if you can utilize a 32-foot clear um, in your current facility, or as we're going to talk about next, when we move, what kind of clear height do we need to look at based on our data? Um, so performed the analysis, we do need more square footage. So what are the options? So we're going to talk about greenfield and brownfield options. So brand new built a spec building or moving into a new existing building. So moving into a greenfield. So what does this mean? Built the spec building, right? You're in charge of the building process from start to finish. Um, so some things to consider before starting this process is really leveraging that storage type analysis to ensure that the proper building specs are met. Um, any architect can put four walls and some columns in a building, but making sure that really matches up with your data and how you do business is extremely important. Um, having the proper clear height, um, if your product is taller product and they come in and say here's your 25-foot clear building, um, but getting 4 more feet into like a 32 foot clear can get you a whole extra level of your 70-80 inch tall pallets. That's a huge win. That's almost 20% extra boost in capacity just by choosing the slightly higher clear height. um, as well as column width. Being able to have the right column width for your rack types can help you bury them all in flue spaces, so you're not losing a single pallet to a pesky column sitting out. And then dock space, having the right dock space based on your business, and whether you're doing full truckloads or partial truckloads, or even just a bunch of parcel, and you need a lot of workstations in front of these doors. Analyzing that before starting this process uh, can just make huge impacts on the lifelong, um, time you're in this building. So
And just to add a couple comments on this, column spacing as an IE, there's certain ones where we call them the building column spacing of death, where it's very difficult to put a racking layout together without losing a lot of pallet positions by having columns, building columns within your racking system. Dock space is another big one. A lot of people will look at it and say, should I choose a one-sided building or a flow-through building? There are trade-offs there because typically, like Austin mentioned, a 60-foot dock, and if it's a flow-through building, having two 60-foot docks is now 120 feet of WIP space. So those are things to consider. And with a lot of the tier one WMSs, you don't have to worry as much about, well, how am I going to know if this is an inbound or an outbound? So those are things to consider as you look at a new building, and especially if you're building one, the different things that can either make life better or more difficult as you're operating within that facility.
yeah, absolutely. Um, a couple other points I want to bring up when designing this brand new building is making sure that that rack layout is considered when designing the office and the footprint of the entire building, because like Jim said, it really can impact the flow of the entire facility, and that's something you'll have to live with after you know uh, spending the time and money and efforts to build this brand new building. Um, and from that, we can also see really the opportunity cost of a build this spec. Um, I can show you an example here on the next slide, but being able to analyze your business and business data is very beneficial before making this decision. Um, so we can see on this one. So this was an opportunity we had where we could control the entire building process, had free reins to put any walls anywhere we wanted. So had three different sections. We had an ambient, cooler, and freezer section. Um, right. So we know that the cooler and the freezer are going to be much costlier than an ambient. So being able to analyze the data, know exactly how many racks of what rack type we needed in each section, we're able to minimize those expensive areas while still knowing that we're going to meet our 3, 5, 10 year growth rate, and they're not going to have any issues of capacity, while not oversizing these expensive areas.
And just to add to that, like this is like a initial iteration of the layout. And a lot of times when we're working with clients, they may gravitate towards what they know. And in this one, you can kind of see all these runs of green. That's single select racking, which creates a lot of aisles. And what we're trying to do with our storage type analysis is to be able to show them, what portions of your inventory are good fits for single select, but which ones work better for denser storage. So being able to show people the difference in sizing of a temp controlled area, like in this case, a freezer, which is the most expensive, area within a building to operate, how we can take these different storage types to influence the sizing of what you're going to have to live with and pay for on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And then along with those, the storage types that that we can analyze, we're also going to take a look at really the intangibles, right? So you got your offices, break rooms, and other business considerations that you'll need within your four walls. So when we had gotten the initial rough draft based on what they had in their current building, there was a lot of wasted space and extra juts in the wall just because they needed the office and the break room. But after looking at the storage rack um, design, we were able to then shift things and move things in on each other. So we still have enough space to operate comfortably, but we're also not wasting space just because we need this and it should be out of the way. So that was really a big win when designing this, as well as staging consideration. So making sure there's plenty of room on the dock, plenty of dock doors in order to hit your required number of turns per day. As well as being able to get these trucks loaded efficiently and all the product being brought to these doors without much congestion.
And one other item on this too is as your buildings get bigger, travel is the enemy. So what you want to consider, whether it's a new design or you're moving into an existing facility, is where's the office? Where are all your employees going to enter and exit? Where's your power? So where's your charging going to be? Because what you don't want to have is the beginning and end of your shift, people walking 10 minutes to go from their last assignment to punching out. All of that stuff starts to add up, and literally all those pennies, nickels, and dimes make a difference, and all based on where these key components in your facility are located.
All right, so want to move, but we don't want to build a brand new building, or the data doesn't say that's a good option. So moving into a brownfield. So this is procuring an existing building, that's empty. Maybe we can make some modifications. So some of the things we like to consider, obviously square footage requirements. So the benefit of that storage type analysis is it tells us exactly how much square footage is required for the racking itself. And then adding on extra requirements based on the business will give us a really good picture of exactly what size building we need to go shop for. With that and the product dimensions, we can see what different clear heights will allow us to do with our racking, just from that data analysis and being able to see that and know that whatever building we're going to go into is going to have the right clear height for us to maximize our utilization is a big win. We can also start looking at column spacing, just like the rest. If one of those buildings has, 45-foot on center columns, that analysis will help tell us, hey, that we're going to have columns in almost every bay. Maybe we should consider our other options, based on the pricing. Um, Dock spacing, right? How much room do we have on our docks? How many dock doors do we have based on our number of outbound shipments? How many times do we want to turn the dock doors in a day? Will we have congestion? Are we going to be, bleeding into the next shift every time, or are we going to be able to get our work done on time and efficiently?
And with the brownfield, um, we like to work with our clients and have them share the facilities that they're looking at with us. So those little spec sheets that they get, And we say, just shoot them our way. We'll take a look at them. We'll do side by side comparisons just to give you a lot of those intangibles that people might not be aware of that can actually make one building more attractive to the other, um, based on things that um, seem like insignificant items, but can really add up over the lifetime of you operating in that facility.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, just being constrained by the facility footprint when designing for proper flow, right? Is it a flow through? Um, is it just a one-sided dock doors? Those are all the things that, with that STA and kind of layout analysis, we're able to see and make sure that your right, even just your raw data is going to fit within this building. And then obviously considering your business needs and requirements, making sure that everything's going to work with these buildings. So here is an example of working with an existing. So we're able to analyze this data and then have them go look for a building. So finding that proper building size was awesome for them. It made the process extremely easy. We're able to work around the columns very well and make sure that they fit the rack types that we're going to go in here. Looking at that dock door, they needed a lot of processing space as well as space for their multiple supervisors with the different business types in here. So being able to provide them with ample room on these dock doors was very important. And with this layout design, we're able to get extremely good flow in and out of the facility with one-sided dock doors that help them, improve their efficiency and improve their operations, as well as looking at the office space required. They needed a bunch of office space with the type of products they had and how they do business. So being able to ensure that we had enough room for all of the capacity they needed for their 5-10 years out, as well as room to grow and room to work around it, was very important here. So just recapping that decision making process, right? Looking at clear heights, column spacing, the required storage types to optimize our rack footprint, right? Getting as much storage as we can in a small amount of space so that we're still picking efficiently and effectively, the square footage required, and then looking at the growth of our business over the 3, 5, and 10 years out. So I'm just going to go around some different solutions that we've seen. The difference between a 20-foot clear and a 23-foot clear can be one level across the entire facility. Um, so if you have 200 bays, that's 400 extra pallets you're gaining. That can be a pretty decent sized percent. And that can be your 1 or 2 more years of being able to stay in a building at a 5% growth. Reducing aisle width by 2 feet, we can estimate that to be around 15-14% more storage space. So again, that's hitting 5% over a couple of years. Those are all big numbers, and this is what helps us decide whether we can stay, how long we can stay, or if we need to move, what's our lifetime in that building until we're at capacity. So to wrap this up, we just want to analyze, perform the analysis to make the right decision. Growth, consider looking at the skew growth, volume growth, or maybe it's both, and then deciding using that capacity and flow to make good decisions for what kind of building we want to be in.
Hey,
And
Austin, we have a question.
yeah,
When is the best time to start looking at the options? When you are full, before, constant, ongoing?
yeah, I think it's always important to be looking at it as you go. I definitely think if you're at capacity, it's too late. Um, if you can see yourself at peak times reaching your 100%, you only have a couple bays empty, I think that might be too late. So starting to look at the analysis as early as possible is extremely beneficial.
Yeah, I think that we always start from when the customer needs to be in their new building or what have you, and start moving backwards. And 9 times out of 10, when they say, when should we start? We always tell them yesterday or 2 months ago. So the timing of these type of projects sneaks up on you. Lead times for material handling equipment, racking, any automation. Uh, and also, if you're looking and you know that you're going to be having an acquisition or a new product line that's going to increase your SKUs, increase your volume, that is the time to jump and do this type of analysis, because then you're able to answer those questions through data and analytics, and you're doing it in a manner that um, is going to help you to make the right decisions regarding your business.
So the last point I would just want to hit on here. So over the course of 20 plus facility layouts, we've had numerous customers able to stay in their current facility when they thought they couldn't. So really just their expectation is always, oh, we got to move, we got to spend all this money, but using those key metrics of what do our SKUs look like, how are we growing, and then what can we do to gain capacity. A lot of the times that allows them to stay and grow at least another 3 to 5 years in their current facility before having to make that bigger decision of moving to a new facility, looking for a build to spec or a brownfield.
And one thing just to add on there to a couple items you were sharing, Austin, is the spec building versus the build to suit. A lot of times it comes down to timing. Do I have a long runway? Do I have 18 to 24 months before I need to be in that building, or I need to be in 4 months? That's going to help dictate it. The location. If you know that being in a certain area is going to really impact your transportation spend, or if it's near where there's available labor, that can make a difference between build to suit and spec. Any special requirements that may mean you need something unique built for your business can impact whether you're going to build or go to a spec building. The other piece I wanted to just touch on is we talk data a lot at Alpine when we're doing these type of projects, but it's the combination of data-driven approach married with experience that is going to give you the best solution. So while we're engineers and we do a lot of the data analytics, we also spend a lot of time with our operations counterparts that are going to run the business, that know the business, so that we have solid analytics around the black and white aspects of the business married with those intangibles that are going to happen on a day-to-day basis. So that's really important. And what it really means is we're looking at more than just capacity. We're looking at flexibility. We're looking at flow within the four walls, safety, straight aisles, no juts or cuts in aisles. We want to make sure the solution is scalable, and also that we're focusing on the productivity within the four walls. So all of those really are key variables when you're looking at your operation. All right, and then just the last piece here is we like to focus with our clients and our potential clients on a life cycle approach. So we can start from where your facility should be located, distribution network analysis, the strategic master plans of what would your business look like if it grew 20% year over year and you just tried to grow with your current manual processes versus adding in automation, system selections, all the way down to tactical storage type analysis, slotting, a lot of those projects that are more of the day-to-day business are things that we can support at Alpine.
All right, we can open it up, see if we have any more questions.
Looks like we have one more. Where and how should a facility slash company start their analysis process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, reaching out to, for example, us here at Alpine, we can start with our storage type analysis, which, as I was been covering, takes your data and lets us know how many racks you need, what the raw numbers look like in terms of square footage and space requirements, and then from there we're able to start our layout design analysis, and that's where we start to marry, like Jim was saying, those numbers of your data with your operations and how you do business, not how I think you do business, right? Um, and then we start to design that together in order to get what your building, should look like. So really starting with that STA, just for that raw analysis, and say, hey, can we fit in our existing? Do we need to move? Um, that's where you're going to get that information, and then from there, working into that layout design is where you're going to marry up your operations with that data that we analyzed in the beginning.
And with that storage type analysis, what it really does for you is it ensures that you're doing ready, aim, fire. A lot of times we get pulled in midstream and our clients say, yeah, we've already procured this 300,000 square foot building. And then we do the storage type analysis and we say, according to our numbers, you could have gotten a 250,000 square foot building, or on the worst side, our analysis shows you actually need 400,000 square feet. So doing this as a first step really makes sure that you're not doing fire, ready, aim, and that you're going down the right path from the start. And don't worry if your data is not clean. Nobody's is pristine or even clean. We work with people to make sure we drill into that, fill the blanks, put proxies in place where necessary. But the data is definitely key and king when it comes to um, the ultimate design of your facility and sizing. All right. Well, thank you everybody for your time today. This video or webinar was recorded. So if you'd like, you can listen to it or view it. And if you do have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at Alpine, and you can see our contact information here. Thanks a lot, everybody, and have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you.